Hey guys, welcome to Geekborn, and this is the third episode in the Barely Relevant series. Similar to the game The 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, every movie or film that I'm going to be covering is connected by an actor or actress. We followed Frank Langella from the last film, Now You See It, and he brought us here to the movie Superman Returns. Like a lot of kids, I was a fan of superheroes growing up. I had seen a lot of cartoons, old films portraying Christopher Reeves as Superman, all the old Superman animated series, uh, Justice League. Seeing Superman growing up, but I never had the opportunity to go to the movie theater and actually see Superman, one of my favorite heroes, up on the big screen until Superman Returns came out. I was about 10 years old at the time when I got to see Brandon Routh become my version of Superman. I mean, whenever you see Superman on the big screen for the first time, that's when Superman, in my opinion, became like my version of Superman. I had a Superman costume growing up. I wore it underneath my clothes and would rip my clothes off and become Superman, pretend I was Clark Kent and all that fun stuff. It's cool getting to see Brandon Routh continue to go through and play characters in the DC universe, as a whole, playing DC characters and seeing him doing other things. Love seeing him essentially reprising his Superman role when they did the big Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover for the Arrowverse, and he was the Kingdom Come version of Superman, almost essentially like this one, older. But it's kind of hard to think about this Superman film when you rewatch it and you realize that there is some implied old lady fucking and dog cannibalism that happens in this film. Looking back at it as an adult, you'll pick up on some things you may not have noticed as a little kid. Honestly, this is a weird film, but I know some of the other older Superman films were pretty odd too, so I can't necessarily give it a whole lot of flack for everything going on in this with some of the things that happen. But when you look at the person directing the film, you kind of have an idea of why some things might be the way they are. So let's take a look at this ridiculous Superman film together. Alright, we start out on Krypton, blowing up in the distance. The iconic Superman theme playing, and we get to see some original looking opening credit scene, kind of reminiscent of the older 70s, late 80s films. And it seems like it might be a sequel to some of those films, the way that they kind of play it off. Like the last few didn't happen. I believe this was supposed to be more of a sequel to the second film. Which is kind of, I think, the reason that Brandon Routh was cast, because he looks kind of like Christopher Reeves. We see this mansion opening up in the opening screen with lightning, and it looks like it's something straight out of a Scooby-Doo cartoon. We end up seeing this lady dying, and Lex in this terrible wig. Lex convinced to help her get him out of jail. He's shown her pleasures that she has never known before. Blech. She signs away everything as she dies. Lex finishes signing because she literally dies midway through. It's a nice, uplifting way to start this Superman film. We end up seeing the Kent farm. Everything is shaking. There ends up being a crash landing of a spaceship. And it's Clark! Meanwhile, we get a lot of jumps back and forth between Clark and Lex because they're the main characters of this. Gotta see what Lex is doing. Leaves the dead lady's dog. He takes her yacht all the way to the Arctic, to the Fortress of Solitude. We're about 20 minutes in before we get to see Clark again. He hasn't even spoken a single word before we get a flashback of him learning to fly. Then he goes and he speaks to the dog when he finally comes back. He gets a baseball, and he's a dick when he throws the baseball way too far for that dog to catch. Would have been fun if it was Krypto, and Krypto would have flew and caught it, but that's not this film. Clark's been gone for about 5 years. Luckily, I guess somebody died at the Daily Planet, so he can get his old job back because, status quo and whatnot. We get to see Lex returning to the old lady's mansion, where we get to see the one dog munching on the bones of another dog. So that's our lady fucking and our dog cannibalism out of the way in the first 30-ish minutes of the film. Wow. One of the ladies, as part of Lex's group, mentions there being 2 dogs before. Like, weren't there 2 dogs here before? Now there's just one and a bunch of fur and bones and, like, stuff. Crazy. There's some odd choices in this film, some of the scenery and some of the technology that they use. Part of it seems like it's like an homage to like the 50s and the 40s and like between the 40s and the 60s. There's like a kind of some architecture and some vehicles and whatnot, but then a lot of other times in the film we just see like modern tech. It's really interesting with even some of like the costume choices make it feel like they're some older, and we see modern phones for the time and all kinds of stuff. So it's really weird, kind of pulls you out, not sure what they're kind of going for at that. Lex, while he's at the Arctic, he stole one of Superman's crystals from the Fortress of Solitude in hopes of using it to grow his own land. The old lady had this huge miniature town in her basement with a train set and a lake in the middle and all kinds of stuff. So Lex takes a little tiny chunk, uses that to test the thing, and destroys the whole town, causes an EMP situation that shuts down everything for miles. I'm talking miles of tech just down all over the place. This causes an issue with Lois Lane, who we finally get to see, who is on an experimental space shuttle airplane launch. They're going to launch a space shuttle off of a flying airplane. Yeah. Lois Lane's one of the only news reporters in the area, so we go through. Of course, Superman happens to see this. Clark happens to see this on the TV. Strips down to his suit. Lois is literally being flung all over the freaking plane. Just we see her bash her head and her whole body multiple times on walls and whatnot of the plane. But she's perfectly fine. Nothing to worry about. And we're 36 minutes into this film, and Superman returns. We finally actually get to see him full on in the suit, but he spends so much time on the rocket, and he didn't have to. He should have really just like got the rocket off and then shifted back to the plane, but he's Superman, so of course he's going to save the day, especially with Lois Lane inside. He's got to save that airplane. So Clark does ruin America's favorite pastime because he plants the broken down plane in the middle of a baseball field. He's been gone for about 5 years, so it's Superman's first appearance. People are excited to see him, and Lois faints, comedically sliding down the slide that, comes off the plane whenever the plane has a crash landing. Lex, we see the miniature completely destroyed with a minuscule fragment from the crystal, so it's going to be tremendous damage that he does whenever he releases the crystal later. And it creates this giant mass. We switch back. We see Perry White finally, Frank Langella, who we followed from Now You See It. Perry wants every single part of the newspaper to talk about Superman because everybody wants to know about Superman. Superman's been gone forever. So he means all of the parts of the newspaper. We're talking the lifestyle. We're talking the business. We're talking whatever other parts of the newspaper there are. When's the last time anybody has looked at a newspaper? Like an actual newspaper. Sorry, it's been a little bit for me. Finally get to see Clark again. He meets Lois's kid, who seems sickly and fragile. They keep hinting that maybe he's Superman's kid, though, from one night stand he had when Lois wrote articles she wrote about the night she spent with Superman. Clark goes through and creepily stalks Lois and spies on her family as Superman. He goes through and he hears this conversation and notices that Clark's man's kind of jealous of Superman. A little odd, but she knows about that night he spent, and she always kind of had feelings for him. Now he's full of himself as Superman. He goes through and he listens to the cries from space. This is actually probably one of my favorite scenes from this film, is watching Superman floating in space, listening to the cries from all the people. Just the imagery of him there in the atmosphere. It's wonderful. So he listens, he figures out who needs help first, and he goes through, helps some people. We get to see some actual visualization of him being faster than a speeding bullet as a bullet is shot, and then he flies into the way to repeatedly be shot with a large caliber round, and then he's shot point blank in the eyeball without even flinching. Then we see Lex. He used a lot of this as a distraction to break into the museum and steal some kryptonite, including one of his female team members who he decided to cut the brakes on her car. We get a classic scene, the whole, is it a bird, is it a plane? No, it's Superman. James Marsden, who is Lois's man, starts asking how tall Clark is and comparing him to the info that he knows about Superman, maybe getting a little sus, thinking, what's going on here? And then Clark acts, of course he's listening to the conversation, he's acting a little goofy and throws up a little wave, and he's like, psh, that guy can't be Superman, he's too goofy. He's a little Clark. And that's, I think, is interesting too, because a lot of people are like, well, why would people ever think that, Superman, Clark Kent, like, why wouldn't they be able to see that Clark Kent is Superman? It's super easy. Like, they obviously look super similar, but it's not just how they look, but how they act. And you're not gonna expect Superman to just be working a regular job. You're expecting Superman to be Supermaning all the time. He's out saving people. That's what Superman is known for. So you don't expect him to be just some guy who's working at a newspaper that's just doing his day-to-day life and job. You expect Superman to be out Supermaning. And it's like, yeah, you might get a little suspicious and think of something, whatever, like James Marsden does. But Superman, of course, is close enough, pays enough attention, and be like, psh, no, hey guys, I'm nerdy. I'm not Superman. That's weird. Superman's Superman. So we see eventually James Marsden goes out to go get dinner, I think, and Lois goes up to the roof to take a smoke break. She's been hiding that she's smoking. Nobody really knows. Superman shows up, surprisingly, on the roof, convinces her to go on a fly. So they go on this romantic fly, kind of call back to some of the older movies. So we're about an hour and 20 minutes into Superman Return, and he finally shows back up to his Fortress of Solitude after his fly with Lois. It's the first time about an hour after we saw the thing get stolen, and he sees that it's missing. So he goes through, does that. Lois is all suspicious on everything that's going on, so she takes her son to a super sketchy yacht because she was tracking down the Blackout. Of course, the yacht's in someone's backyard, so she goes through all the way to their backyard and decides to go inside. So she goes into this creepy old yacht with her little son. Of course, Lex has a big plan. Like I mentioned, he announces that he's going to use the crystal to create a landmass right next to the United States, causing the United States to be taken over by this new landmass so he can sell the new land that's available to the rich people. His whole point of this, though, was because land is not a renewable resource, like a lot of other renewable resources that can continuously be sold. So, if he's destroying a bunch of the United States to create about as much land as there was previously, you're not really creating any new sources of land. If you create it in like the middle of the ocean, you might have some water rising issues, which might still kill some people, but you probably have a lot more land to deal with. So Lex's plans are flawed. Woohoo! I mean, he's a villain, and he's excited to kill a whole bunch of people. He mentions that in this whole scene. We get to see the kid play the piano with a henchman, which is kind of cool, while Lois uses the conveniently placed fax machine. Because it's 2005, and we have fax machine. 2004, we have fax machines. She sends her coordinates to the Daily Planet. It's 2004, I guess you would have rich people sending maybe documents. It's just weird to have a fax machine on the yacht. But Lex goes out, he shoots the crystal that he placed inside of kryptonite tubing into the ocean, so Superman can't deal with it a whole lot, I guess. Lois gets caught trying to fax the thing, and the kid throws the piano at the henchman, because the kid was Superman's kid, like they mentioned earlier. They tried to hint at. Wow. The crystal starts expanding super quickly, causing all kinds of earthquakes. We get this super cool scene of Superman flying throughout the city, using all of his different powers in different kinds of ways to save all these different people. We get to see the yacht. It has a glass bottom, so of course it gets destroyed. That's the only weak point in the whole ship, really. So we see a spire grow out of the bottom of the ocean from the crystal, pierces the boat. James Marsden can fly, apparently, because he's a pilot. They mentioned that earlier. So he goes through on his plane, but Superman must still be saving people, so he got there faster than Superman. Lois and the kid are trapped in the pantry on the ship, and the last possible minute, Superman gets there, saves them. Then he flies up to go get Lex, but Clark is weak because the landmass is half kryptonite. Lex and his henchmen kick the shit out of Superman. We get to see Kumar from Harold and Kumar just kick the shit out of Superman, because he's one of Lex's henchmen. And then we get to see Lex shank Superman in the back with a chunk of kryptonite. It's ridiculous. Lois and Marsden go through. They're flying away, but Lois decides, we gotta go back, we gotta save Superman. Obviously, she's been in love with him this whole time. She jumps in straight away. As soon as he lands the plane, he's going straight down. She goes through, she pulls the kryptonite out of his back so he can save the day. And Superman punches the floor. Superman punches the ocean floor just in time. It separates the landmass. You get 2 times during this climax we get fake outs with air vehicles almost crashing, but they don't. They go to crash and they go out of sight, and then we see them again flying up. I don't know why they had to do it twice, back to back pretty much, but we're here. We go through, even with the kryptonite exposure, he flies it all the way out into outer space, but he falls down to the ground because he's dead. Essentially, we go through, he ends up at the hospital, there's all these people waiting outside. Lois goes to the hospital, of course. Superman's there, he's seemingly unconscious. She tells Superman that it's his son while he's unconscious. Lex manages to escape the whole situation in his helicopter, but he ran out of gas, so he's stranded on a tiny ass island. Superman ends up waking up and leaving while nobody's paying attention. We end up with him checking on his son, leaving off for a possible sequel, or just to end the movie off in a sweet way. I'm not exactly sure. Be interesting to see, to bring back the characters and have like a grown-up version of the child being taught by Superman to become the new Superman in the series. Just have Superman's son just be taught about Superman. I think that'd be super cool. There's some pretty fun imagery, some interesting stuff going on. Some pretty good characters, good actors. I don't know so much about the characters. Some of the acting's kind of iffy. But this was my Superman movie growing up as a kid. It's kind of hard to, doubt it. There's some crazy stuff that happens, like I said. I think letting Brandon Routh come back in the Arrowverse was a great choice, especially letting him be the Blue Boy Scout again with the Superman suit. Speaking of, Brandon Routh, the Superman, is who we're going to be following next on his next comic book movie adaptation appearance, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. We want to thank you for tuning in. Remember, some of us are just born geeky. You have a good one.